All right. So I'm so glad that we're here today for our weekly Lunch and Learn. This week, we're going to be talking about the importance of emotional intelligence in organizational success. And I want to encourage you before we get going, just a couple of things. I open up the room at 11:45 for networking. So if you ever want to come and meet other people and just have an opportunity to talk about what you do and exchange information, know that the room opens up at 11:45. Feel free to drop your contact information into the chat. I'm going to save the chat and I will send that out to you as well, so that you have that information. All right. So emotional intelligence. Let's just quickly define it, because everybody talks about it. There's a lot of different definitions for it, but emotional intelligence refers to the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and effectively use one's own emotions and the emotions of others in various interpersonal situations. There's 5 main components of emotional intelligence, and that's self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. And we're going to talk about those 5 today a little bit more in depth. But what has been your experience, whether you've had a positive experience in your workplace or you've seen something not so great in regards to emotional intelligence?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's been all over the board. I think from every job that I've had and with different colleagues that I've had, and I guess I'll say like it's pretty clear to me when someone has like an elevated level of emotional intelligence, something that I would say passionate about. So it's something I'm looking for. And I think that when it's not there, it's like glaringly obvious. And personally, I'll just kind of adjust the way I interact with that person and change, I guess, the try to control the way I respond, because that's something I've struggled with in the past is being um like if someone doesn't respond the way that you want them to respond to the way you're communicating with them or asking them to do something, any sort of instance that will come up, then I would take it personally in the past. And so being more aware of different types of personalities and their aptitude for emotional intelligence, I've been able to, I guess, regulate my response to the lack of. So none of that was really specific, but I hope that was helpful.
Yeah. You mentioned that you find that it's obvious to see when there is emotional intelligence or when there is a lack of that. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think it's when you notice, like let's say a manager that I have, and I'm on a team of other people on the same like horizontal plane as me, or in the hierarchy, when a manager tries to motivate you and uses tactics that maybe like accidentally put down some people on the team, or they aren't quite hearing um, someone on the team, and their style of responding to something is kind of pushy. I don't know, things like that. Like I've definitely experienced uh, the motivation, lack of emotional intelligence, motivation style, where someone's trying to motivate a group, but they actually end up having the opposite effect, because they're what works for them like doesn't work for the whole group.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. What about you, Irene?
Over the years, it's just kind of been all over the place. Some people, you work with, are mature in their emotional intelligence, and they know how to read people and respond appropriately, and others, for whatever reason, like Aaron was saying, they just don't interact appropriately. And so it's a matter of kind of figuring out, what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like kind of figure out where that person is coming from, who is struggling with relationships with their team members, and maybe try to adjust. I need to go back to DISC, I think, and build off of that, because when we did the DISC thing, that's learning how to work better with other people who are different types. So yeah.
Yeah. Because personality and emotional intelligence definitely comes into play. Some personalities, it's more of a challenge for them to be aware or to have a high level of emotional intelligence. Every one of them can. Some of them just have to work at it harder than others. Absolutely. Yeah. Do you think that this low emotional intelligence, how much of that do you think is carryover from generations before, when A, we weren't talking about this, B, it wasn't expected, the idea of a manager just coming in and leading the team and leading them in the tasks as opposed to really being human. How much of that, what we're seeing now, is still carryover, do you think?
I would think, there could be quite a bit. It's possible that it differentiates based on the structure of the business, the leadership structure.
Sure.
And then too, a lot of people, I don't know. Perhaps a lot of people look back on what their experiences were, and just I'm going to be a manager like this person, and I don't know.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. Like, I like to talk a lot about the nature and nurture. And nurture has a lot of, I think, a big component of this, that if you were managed a certain way or you were raised a certain way, you might exhibit some of those same behaviors, or you might go the opposite way, or somewhere in the middle. I think if you're talking like intergenerational sort of workplace dynamics, I think, yeah, there definitely can be present. That being said, though, like from my experience, I've had really great managers that are, baby boomers, and really great managers that are millennials. And I've tried to be a good manager as a millennial myself. But I think the best managers, they try to see past that, but still understands the dynamics at play, and will use what they know about different generations to try to meet them on their level.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's relevant.
Good. Great. Thanks. So again, we talked about that there's 5 components of emotional intelligence, and the first one is self-awareness. Self-awareness in leadership, it's about having an understanding of yourself, including your emotions, your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, and the impact that all of that has on others. It's a foundational element because it sets the stage for effective leadership and positive interpersonal relationships within a team or an organization. When I think about self-awareness, probably one of my bigger concerns when it comes to this and emotional intelligence and leaders in the workplace today is, as we're watching more and more generations coming up. And as we're watching this unfolding of, we need to recognize that the people we work with are people, and that we need to, bring human back to human resources, those kinds of mindsets, very valuable and very valid. But where my concern is, and where self-awareness is important, is that for those people who are coming in just because they're expressing emotions, just because they've created a place where they feel free to talk about emotions, that doesn't mean that they have emotional intelligence. Talking about emotions, being an emotional person, does not mean that you have emotional intelligence. And that's where the importance of self-awareness comes in, is being aware of, am I just being emotional for the sake of being emotional because that's who I am? Or how are my emotions impacting the people around me and the atmosphere of this workplace? Like, is it helping us work better, or is it hindering us working better? Leaders with self-awareness are mindful of how their words and actions affect those around them. And this ties in next to our next component of self-regulation. So leaders who master self-regulation contribute to a healthier and more resilient work environment, fostering the growth and success of both individuals and the organization as a whole. Self-regulation, it enables leaders to approach decisions with calm and a rational mindset, in avoiding, for the most part, avoiding impulsive choices driven by emotions. Remember, we've talked about different leadership styles, and you have those leaders who are very quick to get things done. You want to have them in a crisis. We talk about that with personality. And it's not that you want to hamper that. Self-regulation isn't hampering that, but self-regulation is saying, am I making this decision wholly, or is it just on emotion? And so when you can say, no, I'm making this decision rapidly, yes. And maybe some people might think that I've not thought this all through, but I have thought it through, and that is my intuition, and it's more than just my emotion. Demonstrating self-regulation also encourages team members to follow suit, creating a workplace culture characterized by emotional intelligence and maturity. We want to have a place where people do feel free to speak their mind and to be human, but not to the point where you should never have people walking around on eggshells because they're afraid of setting Jane in the office next door off. Have you ever seen that happen before?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. And so self-regulation, it ensures that leaders communicate in a composed and considerate manner, avoiding communication breakdowns, allowing that leader to regulate their own emotions, which sets that example for the people around them. Emotions are important, but they shouldn't become the explosive filler in the atmosphere that determines the outcome of the day and the work that gets done. The next thing is motivation. Motivated leaders inspire and energize their followers, fostering a positive and productive work environment. Motivated leaders understand the importance of employee engagement. They actively involve their team members in decision-making, and they create a sense of ownership. Motivation serves as a catalyst for improved performance. So this is an important part of emotional intelligence, because you need to know how do I get motivated as a leader, and how do I motivate? What is the most effective way to motivate my team? There's a lot of tools available that can help with figuring that all out. But at the end of the day, it is that awareness of how we make people feel with the way that we're trying to motivate them. Motivation plays a key role in building strong team cohesion. Leaders who inspire motivation create a sense of unity and collaboration where team members work cohesively towards a shared objective. It all starts with self, connecting personal motivation to inspiring and motivating teams. If I am not motivated, if I don't have the emotional intelligence to motivate myself, then I definitely can't motivate anybody else. Anybody who hangs out with me long enough has heard me use this analogy. It's just so appropriate. And that is when you're on an airplane and they're going through their safety spiel. What do they say? If the oxygen mask falls down, put yours on first and then help the person that you're with. If you don't know how to take care of yourself, then you have no way of being able to motivate those around you. Another component is empathy. Tell me about your experience with empathy. You know, we're hearing this talked about quite a lot in the business world. Tell me about what you feel empathy is, and give me an example of when you've seen it really well.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's really relevant and important to the workplace because, as you mentioned, we're all human. We're all come from diverse backgrounds. We're all experiencing different things in the day to day, and you never know. I think people use this example all the time, like, someone's mean to you in the line at the coffee shop, or in traffic. I try to remind myself, well, I don't know what their day was like. They could have just lost a loved one. They could have just had someone else yell at them. So I think it's important to be empathic for what other people's experiences may be, kind of holistically or even moment to moment. And so I think it's really relevant and important, especially when you're trying to motivate people. And a specific example I would say is I'll give you one, a good example right now of my current role. I feel like my manager was very empathic to my personal, like physical limitations, and with my health history, and we started changing some of the things that we're doing as a sales organization and some of the structure. And to spare you with some of the details, like the relevant piece of this is that they wanted us to go get out in person more, and do some more of our meetings out in person. And while I love that, just even being in the car is challenging for me physically to do that frequently and as frequently as they wanted. So she, remembered that about me, and proactively, has taken steps to ensure that, like, our team and HR understands that I have those limitations and that the expectations should be a little bit different for me.
Cool. Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So last year, I was working at a store on the coast, and our clerk who runs the cash register got a call about something that was going on at her home, family issue or whatever. I mean, you could tell just from her, the way she looked and she was reacting, it's like, she said, I need to go. I said, okay, go. Some of the staff weren't happy that she left because it was a really, really busy time. But I know, I could tell that she wouldn't have been able to make it through the day. She did come back to work, later, much later in the afternoon, and finished up until the pharmacy closed that night. But she needed that space and time to be able to deal with whatever. And right now, so many people can't get to work.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like our apartment complex, it's like it's a ice skating rink. I mean, you can't even get out to your car. and your car wouldn't operate safely even within the parking lot. So, you know, a lot of managers are having to deal with calls from their, you know, employees. It's like, I can't safely make it in to work, or if I did make it into work, I wouldn't be able to safely make it home. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Empathy in the leadership context refers to the ability of a leader to understand and share the feelings, perspectives, and experiences of others. It goes beyond sympathy or compassion, and it involves a genuine and active effort to connect emotionally with a team member. Empathetic leaders, they're attuned to the needs and the concerns of their employees, and they foster a supportive work environment, similar to what Erin has experienced. Empathy is not excusing behavior, but it is recognizing there's a reason, there's something going on that is driving behavior. And then empathy says, okay, and an emotionally intelligent leader says, okay, this is going on in your life. We still have responsibilities. How do we make those accommodations? In essence, empathetic leadership is about recognizing the humanity in each team member and demonstrating a sincere commitment to their well-being and success. When a leader is empathetic, they are looking at their team member and saying, how can I set you up for the best success? How can I make sure that at the end of the day, you go home and feel like you have successfully completed this day? And then finally, as we're wrapping up, we have social skills. Social skills refer to a leader's ability to interact, communicate, and build positive relationships with others. It's interesting and yet not surprising that we have to talk about the fact that social skills contributes to emotional intelligence, because I don't know about you, but I have experienced leaders who have very, very poor social skills. Leaders who prioritize and develop these skills enhance their ability to communicate, collaborate, and lead with influence. A socially adept leader creates a positive and inclusive work environment, building strong relationships that contribute to the overall success and cohesion of the team and the organization. Communication is always the foundation of that. And leaders should strive for clear, open, and transparent communication. We want to have them consider diverse backgrounds and perspectives. When I was in school and working on my degree, I had to write a paper on diversity, inclusion, and cultural competencies. And in the day and age that we live in, it is so important to have those cultural competencies, being aware of the other cultures in our workplace. You know, at the holidays, it's not appropriate to just say Merry Christmas. We've done that for years. You know, my generation's like, it's always been Christmas. We've always said Merry Christmas. Why can't we say Merry Christmas? Well, because there's a lot of other cultures involved and there's a lot of other celebrations. And so rather than saying meh and being all pissy about it, you know, let's take this opportunity to learn. Tell me about that. Tell me about what you're doing. And then that creates that cohesion. Again, that cultural competency is invaluable. My husband will tell you, he remembers when he finally understood what it was like to be a woman in the workplace, not because he's a woman, but because he saw so many times that the things that I experienced, the discrimination, the conversations, the dumbing things down, the mansplaining, and he started seeing that. He's like, is that like that every day? I'm like, well, it's not every day, but yes, that is very common. And it's not to say that men don't have some sort of, they don't have discriminatory actions as well, especially since we've come to a place now where there is such a mix of women in leadership and men in leadership. It would be an interesting study to look at discrimination against men. But we have to, those social skills help leaders be interacting with people appropriately that are not like them. And then it encourages the sharing and knowledge of skills among team members, fostering a sense of unity and mutual support. When you have good social skills, then you've got a good team. You've got people who love to spend time with each other, as opposed to, oh, there's that awkward person. We've got to endure them. And it's really bad when it's the leader. So next week, we're going to, just being aware of the fact that it's 12:30. Next week, we're going to start with talking about how to develop emotional intelligence and leadership. And then we're also going to talk about leadership styles and emotional intelligence. We're going to analyze the different leadership styles and their correlation with emotional intelligence. Any closing thoughts before we end today?
Yeah, I wanted to check that I was on next week. Sorry, wasn't doing a good job multitasking there. Some self-awareness for you. Yeah, it's just, I think the biggest thing for me is sometimes I have a hard time with the vocabulary around some of these topics. So this was really helpful for me to put some words to the feelings that I have. And I think that this is an incredibly important topic. And like my personal motto is, with awareness, compassion, respect, and collaboration, all things can be achieved.
Yeah.
And I think that I haven't had the level of vocabulary that from some things I've learned today and things I'm sure I'll learn next week. So really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. Glad you could be here today.
Yeah.
Another great session, Jill. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Aaron.
Nice to meet you as well, Irene. Pleasure.
All right. You guys all be safe out there.
Yeah.
Thank you, you too.
You
See you
too.
soon.
Next week.
Yep.
Bye.